I got a couple questions for Dave. Obviously, I want him to speak to founder brand, founder branding. Previously CMO at Privy, Chief Brand Officer at Drift, now founder of Exit 5. And I think the most important stat about you is that you have 177,000 followers on LinkedIn.
Definitely.
Um, if you would write your book, Founder Brand, in 2025, what would you change?
First thing I would change is one guy wrote in the comments that it should have just been a blog post. So I probably would have not even written a book. I just would have made it a blog post. um,
Would you have
I think
actually, or is this
no, I'm
self-deprecating
just
humor?
trolling. I'm
Yeah.
just self-deprecating humor. I think I think now, what's funny is like I wrote basically the reason I wrote the book is I love creating, I love writing, I love content, and I kind of was just trying to like unpack like so I love Chris. Chris and I are friends, and but I think if you know Chris and you know me, we're very much different, and we get along, and like I think our philosophies line up. But
Yeah.
Chris is much more of the he's running the analysis with all the data from the CMO. I'm more of like the creative storyteller.
Yeah.
That's the type of marketing I like, and so part of it was like I wanted to try to just like codify what is my way of doing marketing. And I'm not
Yeah.
a very traditional marketer, and I kind of looked back at the companies that I was at and I realized there's kind of this play that we ran with the founder, like the company having a strong point of view, the founder being the megaphone for that, distributing that content through LinkedIn, not in the traditional like PR agency ghost
Yeah.
writes posts for you and it has
Yep.
a bunch of like stats and nonsense. It's a very strong point of view. And you kind of, I believe in this philosophy of like owning your audience, creating your own megaphone, as opposed to trying to pitch TechCrunch and the Wall Street Journal to get written about you. We
Sure.
kind of did that at a couple companies, and so I wanted to turn that into a book, and so we did. If I wrote it now, I would love to make it more like filled with examples. Like I would love to take
Mm.
five founders in kind of different selling different products in
Who
different
would be your
areas.
examples right now? Top of mind.
Oh man, I mean, Adam Robinson has helped me
Sure.
sell more founder brand books. Like I haven't, since I went all in on Exit 5, like I really don't talk about the book. I hang it up here so people see it, right? But I don't really push it. I'm not trying to sell more copies of it, but he helps me sell more books. And so I think hearing stories like that, there's a woman called Kate Stevens um, who runs like an omni-channel e-commerce marketing platform. They've done a great job. And so I would just want to spend more time and like show specific examples, because I think people want to see that. And I think people often ask me like, who's a good example? And I just go to my LinkedIn feed. I don't have a specific name or something. So I would like to spend more
Yeah.
time like actually unpacking it. And then also just showing like, I don't think there is one playbook. And so in the book, I talk about LinkedIn, I talk about podcasting, but I think it could be a YouTube channel, it could be events, it could be dinners, it could be like the philosophy. It's less about the channel and it's more about this overall concept of like building your own megaphone. We live in a world where you can reach your ideal customers directly through social media and content. Like, let's apply the lessons of the creator economy to being a founder of a company, and
Yeah.
let's write more specific stuff. And I also think there's probably a lot now that would need to be updated based on like YouTube is massive. I would spend
Sure.
more time on YouTube. TikTok is a real channel. I think that, and then the biggest thing though, even beyond the distribution piece, is the number one thing that's lacking from founders and companies today is differentiation, right?
Mm.
It is even harder than ever today. And, this has been the same narrative we've been talking about for 10, 15 years now. And actually recently this week I went back and I've been reading Purple Cow, which is a book that Seth Godin wrote in the early 2000s about basically how in order to win, you have to be remarkable. You have to stand out. And if you can stand out, you'll get the early adopters to adopt your stuff and they'll tell everybody about it, right? And I think with what's happening with AI and the fact that like AI is going to commoditize software, and that like somebody with no coding skills like me will be able to build an app or something. What matters more is the story and the differentiation. So I think, there could be a whole book on like how do you really create a differentiated story and build a company around that. And that can't just be marketing's job. So it's kind of a tricky book to write. It has to be embedded in the DNA of the company, like the product roadmap. You can't just differentiate, like, you can't just like hire Dave and Finn to like come up with a good good story for your company. It's got to be embedded in like what product are we building? What opportunity do we see in the market? And so it has to be a whole company initiative.
Do you feel like this whole logic applies to um, personal brands to some extent, where almost like having a founder brand is now part of the differentiation? So hopefully it's really not. It's like what the founder says, but as more and more founders do it, and now every founder is creating some sort of content on some sort of platform, that's not a differentiation anymore.
Yep.
And more companies adopt this type of playbook. Does it lose its point?
No, because I think one of the reasons that it works is like the I love this saying that like the niche can be is you, right? And so
Mhm.
it just might be your way of making the pizza, your way of talking about things, your personality. Maybe you're funnier, more entertaining, more educational. You have a different experience. So I do think that that is what makes it unique, is that we're all unique individuals on this planet. And I think that's one of the ingredients in the founder brand playbook that I think is so powerful, is just like is leaning into that. We have kind of graduated from the corporate executive phase of business, because now people want to buy from people. They want to know who makes the product. They want to know who's behind it. And so I think leaning into that more can definitely be a way. And ultimately, I wrote about this week, that brand is your reputation, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to use social media and content channels to get people to know, like, and trust you is even more important in a world where, to your customer, to your potential customer, they're never like buying a specific product. They're usually shopping for something, right? And so if I want to go bring a new HR system or new CRM into my company, kind of all the features look the same. People ask, like, I moved Exit 5 a couple of years ago onto Circle, and everyone was like, why did you go with Circle? And I'm like, I knew one of the people over there. They were super nice. They were really thoughtful. They had a strong point of view on building community. And I didn't really want to go and, I didn't have the feature chart of like, Circle versus Slack versus Mighty Networks versus this. I went with them because of the relationship and the point of view that I felt like they had. And so I think you need to play into that from a marketing standpoint. You need to be aware that no one is just buying your product in a vacuum. They're even if they really like your product, they're going to do the due diligence, especially in B2B, and go look at two or three other products. And so in a world where when we throw up the feature checklist, a lot of that stuff looks the same, and we're all marketers. I've made the feature checklist that I can make it look like our product has, is better just from the features. Like, oh, they don't have this, they don't have this. The way to win is to differentiate on brand, on reputation. And I think that's a huge part of this. Is ultimately, let's go back to the classic lesson in marketing. It's like, how do you get people to know, like, and trust you? So then you can, operate more from a position of power when it comes time to buy, instead of being so like, we have this feature and we can do this feature and we can do that stuff matters, but I don't think it's the main thing.
I think the circle example is also an example of how you become an option of one. I had a talk with a founder, and he called his own product opinionated software, and I really like that term. And the best example for me are the guys from 37 Signals. Like, if you read the book, it doesn't have to be crazy at work, and you love it and you buy into it and you agree with their philosophy of how work should get done, you don't compare Basecamp versus Asana versus Notion anymore. It's like, if I agree with this philosophy on how we should work, Basecamp is the only option that I have, because it's this software that is built around this philosophy.
Yeah, and then you layer that on with like good product marketing on top of that. Like if you go to basecamp.com, right? So maybe you follow Jason Fried and you
Yeah.
believe his philosophy, and you read this book. It doesn't have to be crazy at work, or you read, the book about remote work or whatever. Then you also hit their website and you go to basecamp.com, and yeah, this doesn't really look like every other SaaS product out there. There's a lot of copy, there's a lot of black and white text.
Let's
The
do it right
headlines
now.
are, refreshingly no nonsense. Wrestling with projects, it doesn't have to be this hard. And so like, I think it's this game of like continuing to win people over. It can't be the only thing. I think the content, maybe that book is what gets you in the door
Yeah.
and gets you thinking about them, but then they still got to win you with the product at some point. And I think they have a strong point of view on how they built things. I think it's a great example.
Well, and they've built this whole funnel, not intentionally, but I remember I got into it because one of the founders was on Tim Ferriss on a podcast. I loved that interview. Then I started following DHH on Twitter, read some of his stuff. through that, I found his co-founder, Jason Fried, read some of his stuff, eventually graduated to their longer form content in terms of blog posts, then graduated to the book, right? It's this whole ecosystem they created. Now, question for you and Charlie, I'm going to wrap your question into this too, because I feel like it plays into this. You mentioned a couple people, Chris Walker, Adam Robinson, like these are the winners. These are the people who are doing a really, really good job. They have tons of followers. People know them, but there's tons of founders who tried this or are doing this and they're not really seeing success. They're not really growing. They're not really seeing the impact on their company. What are some of the ingredients or patterns that you see with those people who've been successful with it versus the ones who are not?
Number one is time. I think if you talk to Adam, he had maybe a year or more of just kind of posting into the abyss.
Mm-hmm.
And that's typically where that's typically why this doesn't work, right? You give up at some certain point of time. And so I think it's a philosophy of like, I believe in this and I'm going to make this work and I'm going to show up and I'm going to post every day, right? I've been posting on LinkedIn basically every day since 2015. And so I'd love to give somebody some like growth hack of something that I did of how to grow my following on LinkedIn. But I think it's like that stuff just compounds and then it just becomes social proof. And so now you hit my profile, you see something I wrote that resonated with you and you see that there are lots of followers and lots of engagement. It just is like marketing is a bit of a game of perception. And so, oh, this person must be legit, right? Same with Adam now, he's got a big audience. And so number one is about consistency and committing to doing this. It's like, hey, you want to get in good shape. You're not just going to go to the gym for 3 months and be like, well, I guess this doesn't work for me and I'm just going to not do this. You're like, no, I've made fitness a part of my life and I'm going to do this forever. I might change the workouts that I do, but I'm going to work out every day and I'm going to do something. And that does compound over time. The second thing is usually the content, right? This is what we don't talk about enough in marketing. So much of this is about taste making and having good taste and being able to know what is good and what is good content, right? And so Adam has refined his point of view. I mean, he writes some like crazy, his headlines now are like, I went on a run with a billionaire, CEO, and I think he's a moron. Here's 5 reasons why, right? And it's like, he wasn't writing that from the beginning, but he's found a style. And so you got to find a way that you do it. And so it's the same thing. Like, if we host a webinar, nobody shows up. Is it because we didn't promote it right? No, probably not. Because you know what? We've done very little promotion for a webinar, but we nailed a topic. We have the content and audience fit. And I know, like we did one a couple weeks ago on like the role of product marketing in startups. And we just know from Exit 5 that that's a really popular topic. There's no magic there. That's just like we created the right thing. And so I think the content really matters, but you don't get to that content if you don't post for long enough to know what works. One thing you can do that's really interesting is like go find a creator, go find somebody on YouTube who has, done a really good job now and has a lot of subscribers on YouTube, right? You can go click videos, scroll all the way back to see their first videos, right? There is usually 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe 50, maybe 100 videos that don't look like the videos that they do now because this is a whole iterative game. And so are you going to make this investment for the long term? The other thing that breaks is like after 3 months, you start trying to like look at the ROI and try to measure it in like direct pipeline or sales. And it's like, no, you got to, do you believe in this philosophy? Are we going to commit to doing this and not necessarily care about the results along like in the short term, but the overall. So there's this guy called Jay Klaus. You know who that is? He runs a community in a podcast called Creator Science, right? And so he has 120,000 YouTube subscribers now. And if you go to his YouTube channel, you'll notice that about a year ago, it blew up. And he changed what he talks about. He used to kind of talk about like all types of creators. And now he kind of really focuses on like YouTube specific, how to be a creator on YouTube, right?
This guy.
Or if you, yeah, I can't see it, but yes, this guy, right? So click videos, scroll down a little bit. all these videos now, like the really popular ones, how I'd hit 100,000 subscribers, right? The YouTuber's Guide to Hiring, meet YouTube's next da da da, YouTube, 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 YouTube. But if you scroll way back more, he wasn't talking about this, right? It wasn't just YouTube. And so clearly, after lots of time publishing and creating content, he found out that, yeah, man, when I talk about content, when I talk about this YouTube stuff, keep going down, you'll see even smaller videos, right? Like how Ben Stiller, like Excel, there's lots of these that are not nearly as big. 620 views, right? Manage your energy, not your time. 3 tips to do it better. 620 views. Now he gets hundreds of thousands of views on these videos.
Yeah.
Kip and Kieran at HubSpot have this podcast called Marketing Against the Grain, right? You could scroll back and see the same thing. They are basically all they talk about now is AI in marketing because they know that topic is popular. You get these signals from your audience. And so when you commit to publishing long term, the huge value in this is the signals, the signals from your audience, the little breadcrumbs about what we should go and create more of. That's how we've turned Exit 5 into a business, is because along the way it was just Dave sharing it was me sharing my thoughts on marketing. Then someone said, hey, it'd be cool if we can connect with each other. So then we add a community. Now, because of the community, we have all these insights that I'm not a CMO anymore, but I could tell you maybe better than anybody, I think, in my opinion, I have my finger on the pulse of what B2B marketers are interested in because we have a newsletter that gets responses every week. We're posting on LinkedIn that we see the comments. We see comments on YouTube. We see posts in the community. We can go to our community and sort by popular posts and we can see those. And so this is the really fun part of marketing for me is you basically do a bunch of things, then over time you kind of refine, and now you find your lane. But if you only commit to, say, publishing on LinkedIn for 90 days, there's just not enough data there. There's not enough signals there. It's to the point now where I know if I write something, sometimes I write things on LinkedIn that are just me being silly and it gets, 57 likes and 12 comments, which is not great for my page. But if I talk something about like, B2B buying, I know the topics that are going to be like, make the audience really react. And I think that is what I mean when I talk about being a tastemaker. So let's bring that creativity back into marketing. It's about the creativity, it's about the signals, it's about building that feedback loop. And I talk about this in the book. That is why this thing can power your whole business. It's not just a marketing channel. In the past companies I've been at, we've gotten event ideas from publishing on LinkedIn. We've gotten product feedback and roadmap ideas. It's this amazing opportunity today as a marketer where people like the Ogilvies of like the 1950s and 60s, they would kill to have access to the signals that we get today. You don't have to have a customer research, panel, one-way glass doing like focus groups. You can get this feedback from social media and comments all day. And it's about channeling those into building this marketing machine. And Chris talks about this a lot, right? He's like, one of the reasons he does those live sessions that he does is to basically test messaging. It's almost like a stand-up comedian. You go around and you kind of test the little jokes in, kind of shitty little clubs, and you figure out where things are, what works, what doesn't. And then you get things ready for prime time, and then you go bigger with that. And this is what's fun about marketing to me. Not the MQL debate or like, who should which team should the SDRs report to? That's not for me. This is the stuff that I love.
What are you like in that journey? So say you commit to it, you understand you're gonna do it for a long time, you're gonna iterate, like is it as simple as I'm gonna post a bunch of shit on LinkedIn? Oh, this post got 20 likes, this post only got 10 likes, so let me just talk more about the thing where I got 20 likes, and then you keep going down that road? Or like when you say taste, what are we looking for?
Yeah, I would think roughly it is that, right? There's also there's other variables though. It could be like, oh, interesting. Like I didn't study the LinkedIn algorithm. I just studied my own stuff, and I would kind of sometimes treat LinkedIn like Twitter, where I would post 3 times a day, and I would notice that post 2 would get 1/100th of the engagement on post 1. And I'm like, okay, boom, that's an insight. Should only post once a day. Then I learned when I post later in the day, it doesn't work. So I found that early in the morning, for me, East Coast time, I get all the East Coast, I get all the West Coast, I get, internationally, it's in the middle of the day or later in the afternoon. It just works, right? And so there's signals like that also matter there. But I think I think the challenge is you can't just post a bunch of things. You have to first start with what is it valuable for me to be known for?
Mm-hmm.
And so I am I run an agency. We sell to this type of persona. I want to be known for, RevOps.
Mm-hmm.
That is your lane. That's a big lane, but that's going to be the thing. And so I always say that, like, in real life, I have, at least in my own head, in real life, I'm a much more interesting person. I have more substance, I have more hobbies, but on LinkedIn, it's just, oh my God, all this guy cares about is B2B marketing. Well, that's not my real life. This is a character that I play on LinkedIn because it works to help grow my business. And so you have to basically pick a lane and then, okay, I want to be known for product marketing. Fantastic. 90% of your content's got to be about product marketing. You can sprinkle in your personality and how you write about, in the context of writing about product marketing, but you have to pick a lane. I think a lot of people make the mistake of, here's what I had for lunch. Here's what I'm doing today. I just had this call. It's got to be within the, like, what's the bucket that it's valuable for you to be known for? So if we can first identify that, I'm working with a founder right now who's building a company in the AI space, and specifically AI agents for a role inside of B2B. So the strategy for him is to be a thought leader on AI agents. He's a well-known founder. He's done a bunch of companies in the past. His whole thought leadership on LinkedIn needs to be like, here's why the current, here's why the existing legacy software is done. AI agents are the future. It's valuable for him to be known as the AI agent guy now. And that's within that, he can be like, yeah, I dropped my kids off at school this week. You can mix those things in,
Sure.
but it's really got to be narrowing down to one topic.
How big or small should that lane or bucket be? Like B2B marketing is a big bucket.
Sure. Depends on what you're trying to do, right? So if you're HubSpot or if you're Drift back in the day and you sell to B2B market, you sell to multiple functions inside of the company, then yes. But even in each one of those examples, HubSpot focused a lot about inbound marketing, which is typically content, but is also a better way to generate leads. So there's kind of demand gen there. At Drift, we focus on demand gen and product marketing. I think you can talk broadly about the world that people play in, because you might be a product marketer in B2B marketing. So you can talk about both of those things. That product marketer is going to care about the broader scope of what's happening in B2B marketing, but the content's got to be more specific to product marketing. You can go as narrow as you want. You just have to know that maybe the TAM, the total addressable market of that content, is not going to be as big. But there's people like, Tass Bobber, who's a member in Exit 5. She was like ran marketing and digital at a couple SaaS companies. She found her niche was like landing pages, B2B landing pages. That is a niche. That is a niche, right? And so she mostly writes about B2B landing pages. She's never going to have 1 million followers on a LinkedIn account talking about B2B landing pages. But in that world, this is what's amazing about LinkedIn. You can have 7,000 followers in that world, and that can be the number one channel of influence for your business. Or there's Tim Davidson, right? Tim Davidson writes about ads, LinkedIn ads specifically. He does it his way. He makes funny videos. That's his take on it. But you can be as narrow as you want.
He showed up in self-reported, if I'm not confused, he showed up in self-reported attribution for us as fruit cutting guy.
Fruit guy, perfect example, right? What's his take? He talks about B2B marketing stuff while he's slicing fruit. That's an amazing example of, like, purple cow.
Yes. Now this again, Charlie asks, how do you stand out and differentiate? I'm going to tie this in. If you say my lane is the thing that's valuable for me to be known for is AI agents or B2B marketing. And then you look out into the world and there's a Dave Gerhardt and there's a Chris Walker and there's these giants who already have tons of followers talking about B2B marketing. And they have all these competitive advantages because he owns a community. Like, how do you then decide how am I going to compete with these guys in my lane of B2B marketing or AI agents if there's already 20 founders out there talking about AI agents?
There are lots of ways. This is the fun part. It's like, first, I would sit down and I would lay out the gaps. I don't know why people hate Gary Vee. He gets a lot of hate.
I don't hate him. He's cool.
No, I think he's great. And Gary says, basically, and there's a whole crowd on LinkedIn that pretends that they're like, it's like they're holier than thou. They don't want to admit that this is the game in marketing. Marketing is a game of attention. It absolutely is a game of attention because no one cares about you. They don't care about your product. They care about themselves. I'm scrolling on LinkedIn. I got a bunch of things to do. I'm looking at my phone, maybe in the bathroom when I shouldn't be. I'm standing in line at Starbucks looking at my phone. What's going to be different about how am I going to stand out? And so when I was at Drift, as an example, when we built our marketing strategy there, our biggest competitor was a company called Intercom. And we basically looked at how are they doing. We were kind of selling a similar product, but they were selling the product. All of their content was very focused on chat for product managers, for product designers. It was about in-app messaging, right? And we were like, wait a second, there's a gap here, which is no one's really talking about, it's the same product. Nobody's talking about this in the context of like sales and marketing. Perfect. So there's a lane for us. Let's go try to write content about this. We start writing, we get some early feedback. Maybe it's 20 likes and 6 comments, but that's more than ever before. Then you also have to look at not just the numbers, but the qualitative feeling of that. It's like, wow, I got a VP of marketing who's in our ICP comment on this post. Okay, we clearly hit something there. And so first would be laying out, and we also laid out, by the way, how, not just the content, but which channels were they on? And so they had a podcast, they had a blog. Okay, no, they don't have this channel. They're not doing, say, a newsletter. They don't have events. So everything works in marketing, right? We've all seen it all. ABM works, SEO works, TikTok works, YouTube works. You have to find the gaps and pick 1 or 2 channels and then make a bet on that channel with the right content. And so I would just kind of like lay out all those options. Who are the people that we compete with for time and attention? Let's stack our way up against theirs. What are the gaps? Okay, nobody's talking about this from sales and marketing. They don't have a podcast like we do. Let's go start a podcast, and that's going to be our lane. I think you have to make a bet. For us at Drift, it was LinkedIn. Nobody was using LinkedIn as a content publishing platform, and we were able to basically suck up the oxygen in the market by talking about sales and marketing chat on LinkedIn. The other thing is like you have to own your like what are the facts? And so maybe what if your AI agent is better?
Mm.
Do you have the better one? Can you prove that? Do you have the data? Have you tested others? Like, is it faster? Is it better? Is it cheaper? Is it more expensive? Is it more premium? Like all of those things can be used as differentiators. You just have to be able to figure out like which one sticks with your audience. It could be, and I feel like maybe April Dunford has talked about this in her book, but it could be like, yeah, everyone else has AI agents. We also have AI agents for sales. The difference is we're the only ones that have a team of humans that are going to fully onboard you. And so no matter what you pay us, you're going to get a call with us. And so when I was CMO at a company called Privy, they were an e-commerce SaaS startup. They helped Shopify entrepreneurs convert more people on their stores. There was a team of like customer success managers. They would do a call with you whether you paid, $20 a month or $2,000 a month. And the features of the product were pretty commoditized, but we leaned in hard on hey, you're a small business owner. You're not a marketing expert. We are. Let our team of marketing experts help you. And so we basically didn't want anybody to feature shop. We wanted you to say, yeah, roughly the product kind of does what I think it needs to do. Oh my gosh, but they have a team of people that are going to help me implement that. Like that could be a differentiator, the way you deliver the service, right?
And then you just keep pounding that message in your content strategy?
Absolutely. If that's the reason, if you're finding out that, well, there needs to be a why, right? You just want to just jam on that message for no reason. But if all of a sudden you realize like if deals are not closing or people are not converting because they don't understand how your thing is different or better, then that needs to be the area. And then there's a whole other school of thought, which is like you could also create a category, and with creating a category, you could be brand new and you're teaching an entirely new way of doing things, and that is your marketing strategy. Yeah, there is no competition because we're the only ones taking this new approach, and here's why this matters.
Does this work for, let's say you are and I talk to these founders, let's say you're a founder of an email marketing software. And so the thing that you should be known for is, let's say, email marketing. But you're kind of like a techie guy. You're not a marketing guy. You didn't build this because you had a POV on like how email marketing should be done. You just built it because you felt like you could build a product there, and you got some customers now. And maybe you have a technical perspective on, our backend is so much better structured than like all the other tools. But when you ask them, it's like, why should people use our email marketing software versus 500 other ones? And they're kind of not sure. Like, can you do this for a founder, or is that founder just deeply in trouble either way?
They might not be deeply in trouble, but I think nobody is looking to switch email marketing providers just because there's another product. And so if you want to win your market and you want to be successful, like I would have a conversation with the founder, like, what's the end game here? Do you just want to have like a nice small business and you're okay with, because I think the differentiating thing, maybe it doesn't matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to have a nice small little app, small little SaaS app, and you sell it for a little bit of money a couple of years from now, and you have a small user base and things are good, then that's fine, right? But if you're not able to win customers, then the differentiation story is going to matter. It's going to matter more. And so I would push them and say, I think you mentioned this earlier, and Dan just mentioned it in the chat, but product design by intuition. I think you need to be, there's like an intentionality to this. And so it's a conversation with the founders, like, why are we doing this? What is our way? And why would we just make another Me Too product here and do it like everybody else, right? And to quote Seth Godin again, he talks about, especially in B2B, people either are going to buy the same thing they've always bought, because nobody gets fired for buying the same thing you've always bought. You go to a new company, your last company used Salesforce, no one's going to fire you for buying Salesforce. It's just what we use. It's not going to break, right? Or they're going to buy the cheaper product because, again, no one's going to scrutinize the budget if we go with the lower cost one. And so if you can't be one of those two things, maybe you do. By the way, there's a whole strategy. Like, you can absolutely win by being the lower cost option. Like, you can be the cheaper version if that's what you want to be, right? But if you don't want to be either of those approaches, then there's got to be a story that you tell in the middle. And so your example with this super technical founder, maybe there is something about that back end, that super technical detail that becomes a benefit to the customer. What if because of that, you have better deliverability? What if because of that, the product is faster, right? The challenge, though, is like lots of vendors claim those things. And so it just becomes, the hardest part about differentiation actually is you just want to scream, but I'm not lying about this. We actually are, right? But consumers don't believe it, because for however long now, every new product is better, faster, easier to use, better design. The Netflix for B2B, some nonsense like that, right? And so you have to be able to prove these things. And so how can you prove this? And so that's where like the creativity of marketing comes in. Like, let's go buy all the other email products. Let's go test them, and let's like run our own report and like publish some data around like, we tried 10 other email tools and we found that ours was, had like, 50% better deliverability. Here's why we're the number one product, blah, blah, blah. You got to be able to prove those claims somehow.
Yeah. Guys, I'm going down my own. Someone started talking.
Yeah, I'm curious if I can slip in.
Yeah, go for it.
So I've been in this spot myself a couple of times, and the technical founder usually has an opinion. That's why they spend all this blood, sweat, and tears building the thing. I think the enlightening point for them is getting them to think less one-to-one, like, I built this product for myself, therefore it must be good, and more into like a one-to-many, and having them see like, who are the many that would want this, and where do their needs sort of differ. And I think that if you can get a founder to begin thinking in that fashion, they then realize not everyone is like them and thinks of their problem in the same way, and you can start to make some progress. But before that point, it's like I say, product design by intuition. I think, therefore I build, and that's a tough spot to be in as a marketer.
Yeah, and you could, obviously, and also like this all comes down to like the data. Are you winning customers or not? If everyone's buying your thing and you don't have to answer any of these questions, then like, heck yeah, you're obviously doing something right. But even in that world, I would want to understand, why are people buying? If our thing is the same, why is everybody buying this? And I bet if you go and interview those customers and you read the deal notes, and you're going to find something. And then the game in marketing and business is to be like, all right, let's go get more people like those. And actually what we found is the real reason people buy our thing is because we're really good in this industry. This is why every startup like evolves, right? That, how many startup stories, started as one thing and become something else? How did Exit 5 start as like Dave Gerhardt's personal, private Patreon podcast about marketing? Along the way, we realized, actually, no, there's a bigger opportunity here. And we kept evolving. Today, the way I talk about Exit 5 is I'm building a B2B education and professional development company. That is way different. I didn't set out to create that along the way. It's been an iterative thing. You learn from the audience. And so maybe you start winning customers and you're like, actually, and this happens to founders all the time. I'm talking to a founder right now who's in like the measurement space. And he's like, yeah, I kind of thought we were going to build for this one persona, but we've actually found our product works really well with these guys. And so we're going to double down. And now the differentiation becomes we're the blank for X, right? And so I think back to the feedback loop idea, it's this idea of building, iterating as you go. But I do think if without any of these things, this is why it's like, all right, why are we in business? Are we winning customers or not? Yeah, we're not closing any deals right now. Okay, why not? Well, we're doing cold outbound. Nobody's opening our emails. Awesome. Why is that? Is it because nobody knows who we are? Is it because the subject line sucks? Is it because the copy of the email sucks? Is it because we're asking people to get on calls? Is it because, okay. And the whole game is a funnel, right? People are opening our emails. They're clicking on our links. We're getting demos, but no one's buying after we give them a demo. Awesome. Guess what area we're going to troubleshoot of the product? We're going to troubleshoot the demo. It's never the whole thing. It's piece by piece. And I'll talk to founders, startup founders, and like, so how do you start marketing? I'm like, email. And they're like, no, there's got to be more to it than that. I'm like, no, literally, you have to make a list of your dream customers, or who are 20 companies right now that you think could buy your product right now, not based on some future ideas. What feature set do you have right? Okay, we could sell to these people. Let's go try then. Let's make a deck, let's make a pitch, and let's go. We got 20 accounts. This week, we're going to reach out to 5 of them. We're not going to reach out to all 20 because what if the messaging stinks and we just now hit all 20 with the bad message and we don't know? I want to go to 5. I got meetings with 2 out of 5. Pretty good. Let's double click. All right, let's send the next 5. It is this constant iteration of like, it's the pitch, it's the offer, it's the content.
I think one thing that you're really good at that is maybe underappreciated is, even though you're now not a CMO anymore, you're good at having a take. Like, it feels like you can just look at what people are saying on LinkedIn, what people are saying in the community. You can kind of assimilate the vibe of where the conversation is heading, and then you have a take. And that take is interesting and a little unique, and like there's something to it. And I don't know if like you worked on this, if this is just an intuitive thing, but I feel like that is something that is really, really hard for so many people. Is there anything you can say to how to develop this, how to do this better, how to?
Yeah, so ultimately this comes down to storytelling and copywriting. And so I happen to be, I also don't want to I'm not a CMO anymore, but I did work in marketing for 12 years. And I worked in PR, I was in product marketing, I was a director of marketing, I was a VP of marketing, I was a CMO. And so I have experience. And one thing about business and life is that history repeats itself. And so even though I'm not in the game now, it's the timeless lessons. And it's funny, there's this, that meme that's like that bell curve, and it's
like the noob, and then the
the noob, and like but eventually like the elite becomes like the same thing.
Yes,
and it's like I did a podcast a couple weeks ago with the CMO of 1Password. This guy's a former engineer, 30 years, like legit enterprise CMO, and like his lessons and takeaways were like the most basic but timeless things ever. He's like, yeah, no, we don't even measure that. Like, all that matters is the storytelling and creativity. But if you say that to somebody else, they're like, no, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. And so part of it is like I think I have a belief in the principles. And yes, I've worked in B2B marketing, but I think like I could help the small business down the road sell more stuff. I'm good friends with my accountant who runs a small business like accounting firm. I could help him get more customers because it's the same kind of timeless fundamentals and principles of marketing. And so I think that's number one. Number two, though, is I've always been a writer, storyteller, communicator, and this wasn't intentional, but I think this is kind of something that you learn later in life about like, oh, why are you in this field? I look back now and it's like I gave a speech at my school's 8th grade graduation. I was the speaker at our senior year graduation. I wrote for the newspaper in college. I've always enjoyed and been good at giving talks on stage, like, you know, public speaking. I'm the person that you want to make a toast at your wedding, and, you know, God can get people to laugh and say a funny story. And so I think it's some of those, it's like, that's why this has been a fun job for me, because I'm channeling the things that I'm naturally good at into work. And I learned that first in my job when I came out of school and I went to work in PR. I was able to get reporters to open my emails and get coverage from my clients. And I didn't know anything. I just was kind of using some natural skills. And so that is like one of the things, is like trading on those. The other thing was, when I was at Drift, David Cancel, who's the CEO and founder, I wanted to become like the growth. I wanted to be Chris Walker. I wanted to be Guillaume Caban. I wanted to be the growth marketer, you know? And he was like, dude, you don't have to be that to be CMO. There are multiple ways you can come up. And he's like, the thing that I see in you is this natural ability to write, to tell stories, to write copy. You'll get to the same place. Double down on your skills there. And I think it was Peter Drucker who says basically, like, you need to know how to manage yourself and understand yourself. And so if you're already naturally a B+ writer, double down on writing and try to become an A+ writer, as opposed to, like, it's going to be way harder for me to be like a D in math and try to get myself up to an A. And so I was focusing on that. And so he put me on like timeless books about storytelling, copywriting, the Boron letters, Ogilvy on advertising, Dan Kennedy. He had me, study the classic like direct response marketing to understand those principles. And so I think now I know how to tell a story, I know how to write a hook, and I know how to apply it to an industry that I have a lot of knowledge and history in. And I think that's where you get that from.
So if I listen to that and I had to try to condense that into how someone who's not a natural, the way that you are, to become a natural, there's a couple components. One is just deeply, deeply understand your space, because that will allow you to just pinpoint, oh, that's old news. Like we talked about that 10 years ago. The other thing is, like, maybe they can read those books that you just mentioned and actually develop this.
On the first thing, you made me think of something. So I also think, like, this is the space that I've worked in for a while. And so I don't know if I think my playbook would have to be different if I was like working with a cybersecurity company, right? Or I'm not a developer. And so I can't have hot takes for developers. I could write a hot take and the developer's like, bro, nobody talks like this. Nobody says this, right? And I think one of Dan Kennedy's lessons in copywriting was like, understand if your audience has like an insider language or a certain type of lingo. And I've been a marketer for this long, and so I know what marketers think about, and that matters, right? I'd have to take a different approach if I was in a different industry. What I would do, though, is I would find somebody who's really good at it. Instead of trying to studying the whole world, study one or two people.
The people who have a point of view in this space already.
People who are great at this. Steve Jobs is the best product marketer ever. Amazing. 1,000 songs. Everybody knows the examples. 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? But have you actually gone and studied his stuff? Have you gone and watched the 2007 iPhone keynote and taken notes and studied? Everything he did was intentional. Watch how simple the slides are. Like, pick someone who does it well and then mimic them. Everybody is copying from each other. Good artists copy, great artists steal. We're all mimicking from somebody else. And so instead of trying to like study the world, find one or two people who are really good at this and go deep and try to unpack them and watch their presentations, watch how they write. One really cool thing now is you can basically find somebody on LinkedIn that you think does a really good job, copy 10 to 15 of their posts, go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I really like this person's writing style. Can you help tell me some of the key ingredients can you explain their writing style to me? Because I'm very good at this intuitively. I'm not good at explaining why. I don't have a formula for hooks. I just kind of know what they are. And so I would use a tool like ChatGPT to be like, I think this is a great presentation. Here's the transcript. Can we try to sort through this and organize this and try to come up with some of the ingredients? Oh, okay, he has a hook. He has a setup with a story. Then he has a hook. Then he poses the problem. Then he has the solution. All right, cool. Now I got a little bit of a recipe. I'm going to now take that and try to apply it. Back to our guy, the tall guy, Adam Robinson. He clearly has built a formula now for writing his LinkedIn posts. He's very rarely just kind of writing, an off-the-cuff take. They're very hook, headline, setup, story. It's very specific. And so you got to kind of know the rules a little bit. And I would find somebody you can study and go build out that playbook. It's easier than ever now to do that.
All right, guys, we have 7 minutes left. I feel like this is the live that went by the fastest so far. So I've been having a lot of fun. I hope for you
That's
guys
good.
it's been good too. If you guys
Well,
don't
I
have a
haven't.
question, I have a last very selfish question, but I want to give you guys a chance here to ask something to Dave if you want to.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Priya.
So Dave, if you have a founder who has a strong point of view, is willing to create content on LinkedIn, all of that stuff, but he doesn't really have a lot of followers in the ICP. So no matter what he posts, the right people aren't really seeing the content. What do you suggest we do about that?
You got to start posting about that content more, unfortunately. This is what's amazing about social media is the feed, the algorithm is going to show the content to people, like people are going to see it. And so I think part of it is like, if you don't have, none of us started with a lot of followers in that ICP. Everyone started at 0. You gain followers in that niche. Like if I just try to let's take my Twitter account, which is garbage. I don't really do anything there. But if I said I want to become known for being a dad in B2B marketing, I would start at 0 and I would just, or a dad in sales. And I just would only write about that over and over and over and over again. And when those posts get picked up on LinkedIn, they're going to get reshared. They're going to get likes. They're going to get comments. LinkedIn serves that content up to other related people. And so part of it is like just playing, like committing to playing the game, because that's what's great. Or this is why like TikTok blew up so much, because they take a video and they show that to the world for you on your behalf. And so I think part of it is like being like, yep, we don't have a lot of followers in this ICP. And so in order to change that, we're going to just like, think of it like blogging. We're just going to blog our faces off for, with content for this ICP. This is all we're going to talk about. That would be number one. And that is how this works. It's like-minded people find themselves together online. And then the other piece of it would be like on LinkedIn specifically, is anybody using the thought leader ads?
Mm-hmm.
That's like the best ad unit ever. Because you're basically able to take an organic post that you wrote and then choose who you want to then show that to. It looks like an organic post. It's not some like, horribly designed ad that looks like an ad. And so you could put some money behind it to help accelerate this and accelerate the discovery of that. Since we've been running thought leader ads on my account, I'm gaining followers at a more rapid pace than I was before. Now I have a larger baseline to start that off of, but I think you could also experiment with things like, spending money to show those people, because then you can select those types of personas that you want to show that content to. I wish there was a better answer, but I do think part of it is just committing to write content for that ICP over and over and over again.
Jenny had a fun question. She said, to counter the comment about this book should have been a blog post, if your book was made into a movie, what genre would it be? And who would you want to play? And who would you want to play you? Right? That's the question, right, Jenny? Who should play Dave Gerhardt in the movie? Vin Diesel.
But am I the author?
I guess it's I don't know.
I don't know who would play me. I don't really have many hobbies. I don't really watch movies. Hopefully someone jacked and bald and handsome. But I would love for it to be satire, like Silicon Valley style. I think it'd be hilarious. Like founder brand, like as a like hilarious movie. Like, look at this entitled
like Silicon Valley.
Look at this entitled douchebag in tech, like telling people to write on LinkedIn. That would be amazing.
Oh, that's good.
Like I'm just like at the grocery store, just like telling people like, "Are you on LinkedIn?" Like making my kids tell people.
Did you know
like,
I have 170,000?
Do you know my dad? Yeah. Do you know my dad has 177,000 followers on LinkedIn?
They're like not letting you into the club. You know who I am.
I'm like at the airport. I'm like at the airport in Burlington, Vermont. They're like, "Is that the guy from LinkedIn?"
Is that a top voice? I've got to squeeze one last selfish question in here. You said you wrote the book with the potentiality of maybe starting an agency around founder brand. Now that's kind of what I'm building, but you also said that you don't think founders should have ghostwriters, which is what we do. So maybe I'm doomed for life, but I'm curious, if you were to build an agency around founder brand, how would you set it up? How would you run it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not that I don't think that they can have ghostwriters. Look, I've made a living ghostwriting content for founders. That is what my, I've ghostwritten for CEOs, I've written decks, I've written a million presentations, fundraising, decks that have helped founders raise millions of dollars. Like have been ghostwriting them. That's part of the game, right? I think the reason I said that about ghostwriting, and maybe I'm not building this business, so I don't know. I think I would need to have been pressured to figure it out. I do think the reason I said the ghostwriting thing, Finn, is that a big part of the magic of like social media and LinkedIn is you need to be commenting and you need to be seeing the replies. And I don't know how that could be fully automated where we post on your behalf. Like there's just value in being like, once I can get a founder to do it and they start seeing posts, comments from their ICP, and then, so that's one, like the comments really matters. And then commenting on other people's stuff, the amount of like good posts that I've written, because like, Finn writes a post and I write some like witty comment in his, and that, you kind of ratio that guy and you get 100 likes on that and that comment. I'm like, oh, that's a nugget that can be the next post. And so there's something that I haven't had the challenge to figure out of like how to scale that. I think that part matters. And then the other thing is just like the technicality of like, do you have access to all these people's LinkedIn accounts? Because I've found that scheduling content is not the best way to drive engagement. And so you need to like, I've stopped using a LinkedIn scheduler. My LinkedIn schedule is now literally my Google Calendar. And I just have a task every day that's like my LinkedIn post for today. And so like, let's say I get off this call and I have an idea for a post, I'm going to write it and I'm looking at my calendar, and the next spot that I have open without a post is like Tuesday, February 25th. And I'm going to just put that on my calendar for that day. And if I have an idea that I like before then, I'll just move it around. And so I think there's just a bunch of like nuance in that I was not pressured to figure out, so I don't have an answer.
Is that actually how much of a pipeline you have? 25th? That's 12 days.
Yeah, I mean, that's 2 weeks.
That's pretty good. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I find that the stuff that I'm not playing a game. Like I have enough followers. I'm not playing a game to get to some number. I could definitely hire somebody or have somebody that could optimize the heck out of my page. It's fun for me. I like to do it. I treat it like my blog, right? And so like, we could be running plays where we look at all my past, popular posts and we reschedule them out for 6 months. And, I have these funnels. I just don't care to do that. And I don't need to do it. And I don't have it. And so I find that like the best posts now are just the things that I want to write about. And so I got some stuff for Exit 5 that I have to promote. Like we're doing an event. I got this sponsored thing. I want to promote our newsletter. But in between, I'm like, oh, I kind of got this thing I want to write about like, the future of PR and something like that. And so I just kind of have them scheduled. And then if there's a day that I don't have a calendar that day, I'll go through podcast clips and I'll find a clip to post, or I'll just, write something that whatever comes on I'm sitting there drinking my coffee in the morning before I go work out, and I'll just write whatever's on my mind.
Dave, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. This will go out in 2 weeks about. If you guys joined late, you can go run to more exciting things now than talking to me, Dave. Thank you so much for your time. Jenny, Jure, Charlie, Priya, Felix, Karn, all you guys who joined, thank you so much for joining. It was amazing having you guys. I do this every week. So if you want to join the next one, I'll drop a link in here. But yeah, Dave, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Good to see you all. See you all on LinkedIn.
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye.
Bye-bye.